All right, so I'm going to try to explain the Minnesota Public Subsidy in a way hopefully it's not too confusing. In Minnesota, we have a thing called the Public Subsidy that we can use to subsidize candidates who sign the Public Subsidy Agreement. In Minnesota, a public subsidy primarily refers to the state campaign finance program designed to support political candidates and encourage participation. It's split into two parts. The first part's the public subsidy part. The second part's the PCR program part, and I'll have a link to the PCR program below. Basically, the first part is direct funding for eligible candidates, and the second part is that tax refunds for voters who donate to those campaigns. Now let's go through the first part. First part is Minnesota's public subsidy program helps state-level candidates, political candidates, finance their campaigns without relying entirely on large private donations funded by taxpayers through an income property tax checkoff on their tax form and a legislative appropriation. The program aims to level the playing field and encourage grassroots participation. Okay, now the way it works, to qualify for this, to receive the public subsidy funds, a candidate must meet several strict criteria. One of them has to be major party status. The next one is that they have to sign the public subsidy agreement. And then once they've collected the contributions, they have to submit those contributions and submit an affidavit of contributions. The major party status, candidates must file for things like DFL or the Republican Party. The public subsidy agreement is an agreement that the candidates must sign, promising to abide by a specific campaign spending and contribution limits. And the affidavit of contributions is the last part that's a little bit more confusing. Basically, candidates must raise a certain amount of money in small contributions. They can raise larger amounts, but only up to the first $50 per donor counts. So basically, they're looking at these donations up to $50 per eligible donor. So basically, contributions of $50 or less per individual count towards this threshold. If somebody donates $1,000 towards a candidate, the first $50 per individual counts. So they're looking for that. Now the governor needs to raise $3,500 in these small donations, which that winds up being a considerable number. That winds up being 7,000, looks like 7,000 little donations of $50 to get their public subsidy or their public subsidy amount. Attorney General has to raise $15,000. Secretary of State and the state auditor both have to raise $6,000. The state Senate have to raise $3,000. I've run for that before, and that means 60 donations. And right now I'm running for Minnesota House, and I have to raise $1,500 in small donations, which is basically 30 people to qualify for the public subsidy agreement. You also have to be on the general election ballot, and you must have an opponent. If you don't have an opponent, then apparently you're not able to get it. I didn't know that before. And then it must appear on the general election ballot. The obligations under this agreement include, by signing the public subsidy agreement, the candidate agrees to some spending limits. In cases like myself, that's not a big deal because my campaigns are usually small. But some of these really big ones if they sign the public subsidy agreement, they have to abide by limits that could be pretty small compared on some of these really large races. These also limit the personal contributions that you can make. The individual can't contribute a maximum of more than $5,000 to their own personal money to their campaign. They have to return any unspent money from the public subsidy that they didn't spend. So basically, if you get a public subsidy of $5,000 and your campaign only spends $4,000 total, you're going to have to refund $1,000. And there's also no independent expenditures. So you have to agree to not make independent expenditures. Now the other thing is the money is distributed by block grants. It's distributed by these little check boxes on your taxes, and and the money is basically given out on a schedule. It'll be in the text below. And then the other part of it's the PCR program. That's the other half of it. That'll be in the link below too. Hopefully this is clear enough.